Yo, welcome. It's episode two of Watch Your Narrative podcast, and it's your boy CD Rome in effect. We are live on set right now. We are excited to be back. I'm sure you guys have listened to episode one. Let us know your take on it. Once again, we are on Spotify, which is our new home now. We're happy to be on Spotify. You can go find us Spotify. Watch Your Narrative. We also are on Amazon Music as well. We are soon to be on YouTube. By the time this drops, you may be able to find us on YouTube as well. All of that is Watch Your Narrative podcast. So episode two, we got a lot of heavy hitters today. We're going to be talking about a few different topics. Your MVPs. We're going to talk about Golden State. We're going to talk about Boston. We're going to talk about everything. But we got the guys with us today, the usual bad company. With us today, my main man for this first episode of season 3, my main man live from New York. He's representing too with the Yankee hat on. Dave, what's up, bro?
How you guys doing? Glad to be back and looking
Yeah,
forward to the new season. Let's kick it.
yeah, and then also too, fresh out as well. Um, fresh out as well. I'm not gonna say where you fresh out from. But my main man B Mays, what's up, man? What's up,
Hey,
bro?
hey, hey, what's up? What's up?
What's up?
For God to be back. Looking forward to the season.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course back once again, episode 2, J Nell, man. What's up, Brody?
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah. So guys, we had a great episode last episode. We got hit with a one hitter quitter from Ace, but we know he wasn't here to kind of follow up. So listen, guys, if you want to hear that follow up, we're gonna do that in episode 3. I'm sorry, you can blame him when you see him. You blame him because he left. But MVPs, guys, MVPs, and I know it's early. It's been a lot of movement. We're actually still heavy in like free agencies, a few things that haven't really come into fruition yet. I mean, there are a few trades that are probably going to end up happening probably before tomorrow, probably, so but right now, from what's presently constructed from the league now, who's your top guys to kind of come in that's going to have like that breakout season and get into that MVP candidate? I'm gonna start with you, Neil.
I mean, for me personally, I think it's going to be the usual suspects, really. I mean, you got Jokic, you've got Embiid, you got Giannis. But I'm gonna throw a name out there. I'm gonna throw a name out there, and he really surprised me this past season, and it it kind of reminds me of the old the older OKC team with KD and Russell
Hmm.
and James Harden. I'm going with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Don't sleep on him. I think he's a dark horse for MVP. You think about his development, his growth, and if they can get Chet Holmgren back healthy, I really like this OKC squad. Um, I'm not saying they're gonna, you know, do anything crazy or get to a, Western Conference Finals, but what we've seen from Russell Westbrook season, triple double season. I think they were only like the 6th seed, and he won an MVP. So I see that for OKC. Maybe getting like a 5th seed or a 6th seed, and him being in the conversation for MVP. But I think it'll be. Other than that, I think it's the usual suspects: Giannis, Jokic, Joel Embiid. I mean, Luca, obviously, but I got my take about Luca. I don't see him as a real true MVP type player. He put up MVP numbers, but I don't think he. Yeah, I don't
Most
know.
valuable.
But it's the usual suspects really
Yeah.
from last season.
And I hate to pivot, but let's pivot real quick. Like, what is the definition of an MVP? What you kind of brought up was very interesting about Luca giving you MVP numbers, but not really. What is an MVP? Like, what is an MVP to you, Maze?
Well, for me, and it's one of those things where people kind of go back and forth on what, it's kind of subjective or it's become subjective. to me, I've always thought of it as, the player that is without them, where would that team be? Without you take that player off of that team, what does that player or what does that team look like? It's not always the most talented player, but I think is the most effective player um, for that year, for that particular regular season. I did, with this past year, I didn't have a problem with Embiid winning it. I still thought Jokic should have won. And they were, the differences in what their production this year was negligible. I mean, they were right there neck and neck. But I think without Embiid, I think Philly would really struggle. I think without uh, LeBron, obviously, the Lakers would struggle. And without Jokic, I still think Denver was a pretty good team. I don't think they won a title without Jokic, but so you could. There's any number of definitions you could, that you hear. Is it the best player? Is it the player with the best numbers? Is it the best player on the team with the best record? Because that has seemed to become a criteria over the last few years. Is your team in the playoffs? Is your team, a lottery pick? You may be putting up great numbers, but is your team really bad? So, I just think it's a rolling definition. I think it kind of changes over time, but to me, it's the player that's most effective for their team that year.
Yeah. So who do you think who's your favorite going in to next year?
My favorite, like kind of like James said, you've got your your usual suspects up there at the top. I would have to put Jokic at the top, or Giannis, possibly even Jason Tatum. Um, I actually think Curry probably could have gotten um, more consideration this past year because I think he was actually really, really effective. The team just, I think after the whole Draymond and Jordan Poole thing, I think that was just too much for them to kind of overcome.
Yeah.
But if I had to say, I would say Jokic, and then a dark horse would be probably somebody like Devin Booker. I'm not a huge Devin Booker fan, but I think he's kind of set up to be in that conversation next year. I think Jokic would probably be my front runner just because the way he plays, he'll be available. He doesn't really get injured. I think Embiid scares me because he can't stay healthy. Giannis, has suffered some injury over the years. So I would say Jokic, and then I might go with somebody like Devin Booker. But it's going to be hard for Booker to win, I think, because he's got two other guys now that are.
Yeah, way too much talent. It's a lot of talent on that team. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to take them a while to kind of figure out, floor spacing and rotations and that type of thing. So,
Yeah. What's your take, Dave?
Yeah, I'm sort of the opinion that MVP should be a regular season numbers, right? And that MVP should be the most valuable player on the team. That meaning that if that player is not on that team is not making it nowhere near the playoffs. Uh, and it should points should account, defense should account, assists should account, and the standings should account. So if you're a team that if you're a player that's putting up numbers, scoring 30 points per game, but your team is barely eighth seed or seventh seed, but your numbers are gaudy. I don't consider that player MVP because that doesn't necessarily mean that he's making his team better. But if you're a player that's putting points, is able to fill up the stat sheet in different areas, and that team is at the top of the league, then I consider that player the MVP. And last year or this season that just ended, that's why I consider Jokic the MVP, not Embiid. Um, I felt like Embiid had him on the points, he was scoring more points. But the better team and team that actually ended up winning the championship because he was the best player on the team was Jokic. So, in my opinion, is always going to be who is the best player on that team. Can that team succeed without that player? Would they be anywhere near the playoffs without that player? And is that team at the top of the rankings? So that's what qualifies me for me a player being MVP, in my opinion.
I think
And
it's.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I think it's changed over the course of time. Like I look back at like Steve Nash. Like Steve Nash numbers weren't like if you go back and look at his numbers, he may have had 16, 17 points a game with about 11, 12 assists though. But the efficiency and things of that nature, but the numbers just don't pop out to you. Like nowadays, it's such a big numbers thing. Like if you look at the last, I mean, even going past the last 5, which Joel, his numbers were. If you look at his numbers, 30 and 12 or something. Well, I can't remember all the rebounds, and then if you look at Jokic, almost averaging a triple double. Same thing with Giannis. Like numbers only tell a little bit of partial of the story. Because even with Luka, James talked about it as well. Like Luka gonna always have numbers, but how does those numbers affect winning? That's how I always looked at it too. It's like the most valuable player most valuable player. And that's literally what it's called. Is like the value of this player cannot be replaced. And Luka Doncic, yes, he got all the numbers in the world, but you could probably take that same squad. Maybe you could throw Jimmy Butler on it. Jimmy Butler has proved himself. He could throw him on. He may get him farther than what he at least get him to the playoffs. Maybe so Luka ain't even making the playoffs. So I know for me, next year, I would say my dark horse. This is a hot take here, but this is also beckoning upon what they do as far as in the off season right now as well. But I'm gonna go in the East, man. I'm gonna go Donovan Mitchell. I think I think it's been big man heavy so long, and that goes back to the numbers because big men are gonna always have the rebounds and and then the blocks and nowadays they're gonna have when you look at Jokic and Giannis, they got assists now, so it's their numbers are always popping out. But I think that if Donovan can get the right team around him, or if they got another year, because they were the 4th seed last year, I think that they can actually, if they can get to the top of the East, especially with 76ers probably maybe dropping off a little bit, because I just don't think that I think that their run is nearing its end. And I think that Donovan Mitchell may have a shot. I don't know. But if you look, go ahead, Mace.
No, I was saying, I didn't think about him. Like you said, it's hard nowadays for guards to really be in that consideration. I think Westbrook was the last guard to win it. And then before him, I think it was Curry, right?
Yeah.
And then did James Harden?
James Harden won it right
James Harden won.
Yeah,
right. So it was Curry, Harden, Westbrook. Those are the last 3 guards to win. So it's really hard. But like you said, the other factors they have, they're all 3 really good assist guys. Curry and Westbrook were at that point really good rebounding guards as well. So that did help. You need some other things to fill your stat sheet. That's why I honestly think the MVP really should be handed out after the season, after the regular season and the playoffs. Only because, again, Embiid was negligibly better in some ways than Jokic, not much. Probably the only, metric I would give him the upper hand on is defensively. I think he's an elite defender. But offensively, I mean, you could take one guy and plug him in, and you get the same production more than likely. But I would like to see, just like they do with Defensive Player of the Year, all those. No, they don't. They hand those out like during the playoffs. But I think they should wait for all those awards until after the finals is over, to get the totality of the season, to take all that into consideration. Because if you had to repick, Jokic would have I mean,
Yeah.
it would have been Jokic. It would have been Jokic and Jimmy Butler, you know, or at least you have to throw Jimmy Butler into the conversation because his regular season might not have been, jumped off the page at you, but when you take into consideration what he did in the playoffs, you would have to put him in there with Embiid and Jokic. So
Yeah, my opinion, and I've been talking about this player for a while. I mean, for a while, and it hurts to say it because I'm a big New York fan, Knicks, Yankees, all that. You guys know. But Jason Tatum, he looks like a basketball player. He moves like a basketball player. He has the mentality, that that Mamba mentality that he's not going to be denied. And I just have a feeling that next year, with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, it's going to open up the floor for him. He's going to be able to just drive to the hoop, and the lanes are not going to be so clogged up. Also, the release of what's his name going
Smart.
to
Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart. He wasn't he, he wasn't what they needed. So I think in my opinion, if I was a betting man, I would say, hey, I got to say Jason Tatum has a great chance of being the MVP of the league. And my other dark horse is going to be Stephen Curry. Adding the addition of Chris Paul, I think that Stephen Curry might change a lot and become more of a better 3-point shooter, average wise. Um, Chris Paul is a good passer, and I can't I just
That's scary.
imagine them out there being threes freely. So yeah, those two guys for me. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is favorite along with Giannis. But if I was a betting man, I would say Jason Tatum 1, Stephen Curry 2.
Yeah. So, and I promise you cued in. Our next, one of the things I want to talk about too is really, and I want to start with Boston. So, like Jason Tatum, can he? We see him in the regular season, as you just said. You described him perfect. He does all these different things, right? But then somehow in the playoffs, they just somehow just come up short. They made it to the finals, ran up against Golden State. You would have thought that they would have been hungry enough to get back, but then they lost to Miami, just ran out of gas, I think, there. But now they shook it up a little bit. They shook it up a little bit. What does that do? I'm gonna start with you, Neil. Like, what does that do for Boston? Like, where are they at in the grand scheme of things with the subtraction of Marcus Smart, addition of Kristaps, and what is that? What does that do for them?
I think it honestly makes them the favorites in the East. I mean, they didn't have to give up a Jason Tatum. They didn't have to give up Jaylen Brown. Um, you know, is Marcus Smart Kristaps Porzingis? I don't think so. You know what I mean? And just like David mentioned before, I mean, he didn't really, do anything for them in the playoffs. So I feel like with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, and they still were able to keep their starting center. So he'll be more than likely at the 4, or I don't know how they're gonna, you know, work that lineup out. But I feel like this is what they need to get them over the hump and finally make it back to the finals, and not only make it to the finals, but also has a real legitimate chance of winning the championship. So I feel like this moves the needle. This is the type of move that will get them in position to be one of the favorites to not only come out of the East, but also win the championship.
Hmm. What you think, David?
Yeah, and in my the Celtics have one of the best lineups in the league. Deep, they're a deep team, and yes, Marcus Smart is going to be a bit of a loss. I think he was the way they were using him was he should have been coming off the bench. He should have never been the starter there. I think that hurt the team a lot. Um, Hopefully, Malcolm Brogdon is going to be healthy and he'll be able to take the reins and be the starting point guard. I still believe that they're a point guard away from actually being the best team in the league. talent-wise, I mean, they're up there with any team. Yep, they're young. Um, they're pretty good defensively in every position. I mean, Kristaps is not a great defensive player, but at least I believe that he can provide some sort of defense. And obviously, he's a player that can space the floor. So I believe that, in my opinion, the Celtics are the team to beat in the East. I would wait to see if they're the best team in the league, but in the East, yeah, the Celtics hands down, they got to be the team to beat.
Okay, so hey, hey, I'm gonna say watch your narrative here. So I'm gonna say watch your narrative here. You said something that I particularly don't agree with.
He can block shots.
Or yeah. I mean, Porzingis can play some defense. Now, if the thing is about it is you have to be defense is also like effort and motivation. And obviously he was not motivated with Dallas watching Luka dribble the air out the ball every possession. And then also too, I think that in Washington, I mean, what are you playing for? I mean, he obviously that was like a really a throwaway season. So going into this particular culture, putting on that green, looking up and seeing all those banners, having KG probably pull up to the arena and say, "Hey, boy, hey, it's you next, bro, you next." You just imagine that he's gonna be a little bit more motivated to me. Like that's just me. Look at him. You can look at him on the picture. Look at the for the audio.
Smiling, he's happy.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
he's in. He is
Well,
also signing an extension as well. By the way, he's also signing an
that's
extension.
why he's smiling. I mean, because I mean, I hate to be the to play whatever devil's advocate here, but or be the contrarian, because y'all bring up some good points about Boston with Porzingis. The only thing is this picture we see. This is how it always starts, right? This is how every one of these things. KD going to Brooklyn, Harden and Kyrie. That's how it always starts, right? But then 2 years later, it's the only concern offensively. I think Boston is as good as any team we've seen in a while because they have that much talent. The thing I worry about with them is, what was their problem this year was defensively. They weren't as good defensively as they were the year what was it? We went to the finals in 2022. They weren't as good defensively as they were that year. Losing Marcus Smart. Now, granted, Marcus Smart gives you essentially nothing on the offensive end. So you do replace that, but there is some toughness that he brought, some grit, and he's a smart player. He knows, he's battle tested. He's been through a lot in Boston in terms of basketball that matters. Porzingis hasn't. He hasn't played much meaningful basketball in his entire NBA career. Also, his problem in Dallas was that he couldn't adjust to not being the main option behind Luka. And so now, he had an issue with his fit there in Dallas. I'm interested to see how he's going to fit when he's now the third option by a mile. I mean, it's Jaylen Brown and it's Jason Tatum. And those are also two pretty heavy ISO players. So I'm interested to see where he fits in, if he can adjust, and what Mazzulla how he can work that dynamic, because it can be feast or famine. And so I'm interested to see kind of how it shapes out. But they definitely, if they can address point guard, because that's what's been their Achilles heel last couple of years, is didn't really have that guard at the right time that was able to, make those decisions. So I'm interested to see kind of what they look like with him, but it's definitely intriguing.
Where do you put them in the East? Where do you put them?
I'd have to. I mean, you have to put them. I would have to put them at the top. I mean, just on paper, it would be between them and I would probably say Milwaukee, only because, especially if they re-sign Brook Lopez, which might not happen now that they've signed Middleton. I would they're definitely one or two. Boston is one or two, I think, because they were right there this year. I mean, yeah, I don't know unless Miami makes some kind of big deal for Lillard or somebody. I don't know, but I would say Boston or Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe in Philly as a franchise, really.
Well, as we
Yeah.
said in episode 1, the process just might be over.
Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't discount the Knicks. To be quite honest, I wouldn't discount the Knicks. I don't think they're the best, and I don't think they're the one of the top teams talent wise, but they're definitely much better than they have been over the last years. And I think they've tasted what it kind of takes now to get to the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. But Boston and Milwaukee, those are probably my two teams from the East.
Mhm. Yeah. What I say is this too, about Boston. I actually love the trade. I mean, I love the trade. First of all, I don't think Marcus Smart got enough recognition, for what he did do as far as like he was one of those. He was at the tail end of the big three Boston with Rondo. I think his rookie season he may have played with Rondo for like a year or two, and then of course I think that helped put a little bit of that dog in him. And I think he to me, I mean, like you just said too, Maze, he played a lot of meaningful basketball. He's battle tested. So I think he's gonna be great for the Grizzlies, along with the addition of Derrick Rose. We'll see how that goes. But I think for sure, as far as just with Boston having Porzingis, um, and I think that Porzingis has had a few more years under his belt now to play different roles. To know in New York that hey, I had the keys, and then now I had to go to Dallas, and I don't got that. I went to Washington to throw my life away, and now I'm back in a spot. Now he can appreciate. I think he can appreciate now, like man, I'm playing with some guys now, some guys. So I think that Boston to me, I think it's them in Milwaukee, depending on if Milwaukee can get, as you mentioned, get Brook Lopez because he's so important to that team. He is so very important to that team. So on the West Side, shout out to Snoop. Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors that Boston Celtics faced off against Golden State a couple years ago. So Golden State, they've made some changes. Some changes. Some people was kind of weird. We was wondering what was gonna happen with Draymond, but he did resign. But they added Chris Paul. What type of fit is that? What does that do for Golden State? Let's start with Dave. Tell me, what does that do for what are your thoughts on Golden State? What do you project them to do this year?
So the Golden State Warriors are sort of in a predicament because I believe the Lakers have gotten better. Um, Obviously, the Nuggets are not going anywhere. I think they've proven that they're a great team, and they sort of play similar to the way Golden State played. Golden, I'm I'm pretty sure somebody gave the Nuggets the Golden State Warriors playbook because to me they play just the same way. Um, Sort of Draymond playing the point the way Jokic does. But I'm not talking about Denver Nuggets, right? We're talking about the Warriors. But in my opinion, the Warriors they got a point guard now that can get uh, Curry off the ball, so it'll open up the chance to get more 3-point shots up. Clay got to help Clay Thompson as well. Um, I also believe that they're in need of a center. Uh, and that's their weak point. I think they're going to be a short team with two guards that are what be 6'3" and below. So that's gonna kind of a little hurt them a little bit in the West because teams in the West are pretty tall. So uh, I don't know. I see them as if they're able to get somebody that can provide some sort of defense in the middle, some center besides I can't think of the center right now that they have.
Looney,
He's a
Kevon
great
Looney,
rebounder. What you say?
Kevon
Looney.
Looney.
Kevon Looney. Yeah, that name escaped me. So they need somebody. They need to put Kevon Looney in the back on the bench, and they need to go try to get some serviceable center. And if I'm a Knicks fan, but if some way somehow the Golden State Warriors were able to provide some sort of package that would benefit the Knicks, if someone like Mitchell Robinson was in Golden State Warriors, I would say, man, Golden State Warriors have the best chance in the West to make to make the finals. But as right now, no, I don't. Chris Paul's going to help a lot, but I just see them like maybe a fourth seed at best. So no, I don't buy the. It's going to help Curry and Klay Thompson, but it's not going to help the team overall. They need more.
What you think, Maze?
Well, when I first saw it, I thought it was a like a parody account. When I saw somebody tweet, I was like, "This is a joke," all right?
Yeah.
Because you trade. Granted, Jordan Poole was awful in the playoffs this year. He was terrible. Like he gave them absolutely nothing after getting a $140 million contract extension. I don't know that I would have traded him though, and this is probably going to sound nuts. I would have told Draymond, "Thank you, we love you, we'll put a statue up, but we got to get bigger, we got to get younger. We appreciate your time, but because the issue again, as was with Boston, was this year they weren't as good defensively. A hallmark of all their championship teams and all their championship runs were that they were really, really good defensively. They were either 1, 2, 3 in total defense in the NBA, along with being one of the best offensive teams as well. Another problem I see with Golden State is really coaching. I think they got lazy. I think Curry, Thompson, Draymond, they've been so good for so long that Kerr almost seemed like, oh, we don't have to adjust. The Lakers, you could tell the Lakers knew Sacramento. It started with Sacramento. With Mike Brown being over there, he knew every set they were about to run. He knew what they were about to do, when they were going to do it. The Lakers also knew LeBron's had so much experience playing against that team. He probably already knew a lot of the plays. If I could pick out what they were about to run sitting on my couch, I know, other teams in the playoffs could figure it out. So I think I think those are two big problems that they didn't address with Chris Paul. I just don't, with the style of play and how they play, I don't know that a guy who is 38 years old that can't play defense now helps you. They needed to get younger. They needed to get bigger. Like David said, they needed to address rebounding because that's what killed them in the playoffs. Once the Lakers just murdered them on the boards in the playoff, and so these teams are too big, they're too young, they're too athletic to just stand pat like they did. And I don't think Chris Paul helped. If I were them, I would have said, all right, Draymond, thanks. We're going to go after Brook Lopez. I think somebody big like him or Porzingis, if they could have put together some kind of trade package with Porzingis, I think he would fit in either place. I just don't know if they got better. They probably still make the playoffs just because, you still got that core together, but I don't know if they're really serious contenders to win it, to even get to the conference finals, But I don't know. The trade was a little weird to me. It didn't really make sense based on what they needed,
Yeah. Honestly, like you said, when I first saw it, I said the same thing. I was like a period, like wait,
Yeah.
Chris Paul. I'm like, what? Chris Paul? What are you doing?
Yeah. Strange. It was strange.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I mean,
I
you should be getting
would think if it's
more younger. You got
yeah.
about 50% of your 75% of your team is what 30 and over.
Curry's
Oh,
Curry would be 30. Will he be 36 before? He'll be 36 before. I think he's 35 now.
yeah.
Thompson's 33 or
Yeah.
2. Draymond's 32. So I mean,
Yeah,
they're close to the end and the beginning. I think Jordan Poole's a lot about the luxury tax too, because I think they know they can't really sign anybody, so somebody had to go.
right.
To me, it would have been Draymond, but hey, they made their choice. But
You had to get rid of one of them, though. I tell you that.
somebody had to go. Yeah.
The punch that was
Yeah.
heard around the world, they couldn't be able to. They weren't gonna be able to extend.
Yeah,
because I don't know how old is Draymond, but I don't know who's going to be the starting center. But 4 out of the 5 starters, I'm assuming Chris Paul is going to be the starting point guard. Curry's going to be the starting shooting guard.
That's the other thing.
Small forward.
Yeah.
And
Who they gonna
Draymond
guard?
playing the
What
4.
was that backcourt going to guard?
Yeah, no, I don't think you can. Yeah, I think you have to. You
4
got
players that are.
You got Wiggins, but
yeah.
you got 4 guys that like your tallest guy now is 6'8". I think Draymond is tallest starter if Chris Paul's a starter. So you got Chris Paul is 6'1", Curry is 6'3", Klay Thompson is 6'7". I think Draymond's like 6'8", and Wiggins is a 6'8". So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What you think, Neil? What's your take on it?
Oh yeah.
Man, so this Chris Paul trade is I don't know what the Warriors are thinking about this trade. Chris Paul, he's hurt seems like every postseason he's hurt.
Every postseason, yeah.
Every postseason, so he's not getting any younger. I don't see him, having an impact on the team like that. If you look back at the Warriors playoff run, that first round, they had to go 7 games against an inexperienced Kings team. And the only reason that the Warriors won that was from a, heroic effort from Curry. Curry had to put up 50 points to get out of the first round. Mm-hmm. So Steph needs some help. He needs help. He's not getting any younger. And I don't think this trade helps them at all. Helps him, helps the team at all. They didn't get bigger. They didn't get a good center. They didn't get any defensive wings. They didn't. It seems like this is a move to make another move. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I feel like they're going to trade Chris Paul for someone else. I don't think he stays on the Warriors team.
I can't see it. I
don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it.
They keep trying to say they're not, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, because I mean, but you know what? The Warriors have done this before.
That's true.
Whenever when KD left, they did a sign and trade and they got D'Angelo Russell, and they were like, "Oh, we're not going to trade him. We're not going to trade him." And we knew like D'Angelo Russell don't fit there at all. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like, and then of course they was able to flip that into Andrew Wiggins. So I think you're right. I mean, that they may have grabbed Chris Paul as like almost like a fail safe. Like he's an expiring contract, so it's not like a team wouldn't trade for him if they offered him. So you can let this play out. I don't think Chris Paul's gonna start personally. I think he's gonna come off the bench. But I will say Chris Paul coming off the bench with those young players like he did in OKC, Kuminga, Moody.
And that's it.
See how it goes. Because Chris Paul, can you imagine having Chris Paul and Draymond Green in the same locker room? And both of them, as a young player, both of them until neck.
Yeah, but see, and that's another thing too. The history between Chris Paul and the Warriors teams.
But I think professional. I mean, they're professional. If they think they have a legit shot, I think they can put all that. But I would question Draymond's stature in that locker room now after what happened with Jordan Poole. I think that knocked him down. I mean, vocally, yes. Obviously, the organization still values him, and Steve Kerr still values him. My question is, the guys next to you, have to be like, man, this dude, stole on this dude for nothing,
Yeah,
or
right.
essentially nothing. And
Right.
I think that had a major impact on their team because they were really bad on the road this year, which they've normally been elite on the road.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a problem like that, especially before the season, I think what happens is guys aren't hanging out, on the road like they normally would, and you're not connected. And I think that when they are on the road, it showed itself that their locker room really was kind of disjointed. And I think Draymond Green, for everything that he brings as a player, his temperament, his leadership, I think he can be just as big of a hindrance sometimes to them as well. So I it is an odd mixture of personalities in that locker room though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
this might be a bit of a hot take, but remember when Kobe, right before he messed up his Achilles, the Lakers should have traded him then, and they didn't. They probably could have got a whole lot for Kobe.
yeah.
And it's my opinion. I know a lot of Warrior fans are gonna say, "Man, you're crazy," but this is the time to go get something, trade for something you probably get from for Steph Curry. You could get a lot.
Hold on,
And I
wait.
think this is the time to go ahead and trade Steph and
What?
start over again. You have to. You have to.
What?
Think
Trade.
about it though.
Who else can you get from? Who
He's
else?
still
You're
playing it.
not
He's
going to get
still playing it too.
Clay, because Clay is not the same player
Right.
that he was 2 years ago.
No,
You have
no,
No,
to.
No, think
no.
about it.
Steph is still
Steph,
playing at a
This
too
is a
high of a
business. You
level.
should be a businessman, and you have to understand that. Hey,
yeah,
right
this
now
is
he's
business.
a lot, and
He
if
he
I,
is their business though, Dave.
huh?
So I'm saying
He,
the Chase Center was built on Steph Curry's
he built that.
back.
It's a business.
That may
That's
be
why
true.
I would have let Draymond ride if
Right?
anybody.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Clay.
Shoot.
Now, if Clay doesn't take, because I think he's due for a contract extension next year. So if he doesn't take a pay cut, now he might be.
Yeah.
I think he's valuable. I don't think you get rid of him either. But if he doesn't take a pay cut, he might be, trade material as well.
Now,
But not.
now I will say this. Like, I think, if we're talking about Clay, if I wouldn't trade Steph. I would trade Clay before I trade Steph. Now, because the thought process is Clay looked old. Like, Clay looked old. Like,
He hasn't been the same defensively. I mean, he's still crazy thing is he led the NBA in threes this year. So I mean, he's his
what's
shooting is back,
he
but
looking
He
those.
has
what what always separated him from Harden and those kind of two guards to me was defensively. He hasn't been very good defensively in 2 years, which is it's understandable. I mean, you had two pretty catastrophic injuries back to back.
Leg.
Um, but yeah, if you're going to I wouldn't trade either one of them. But if you're going to trade one, it would be Clay before it would be Steph. But I see what you're saying, though, David. I mean, if you're saying, hey, we busting it up, we're gonna start from the ground up again. Yeah, you probably would consider it. But I think they still have a window to
Yeah,
be in the hunt.
it's
With
still
with
something
with,
to be
with
I don't,
Steph with Steph's
about.
ankles, with Steph ankles, I would have to. If I'm the general manager for
With
both
his
Warriors, I start taking calls.
Ankles. Yeah.
his ankles. I mean, he hadn't had an ankle injury in.
But he's getting older.
Yeah.
He's not. He's not.
But
And
it's something to be said,
injuries are going to come back.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
want you to look at it like this too, though. So if you're an organization, let's say if you're a young player coming into the league, you're Victor Wembanyama, and of course, yeah, he's with the Spurs. He may play his first 6-7 years there, but just imagine if they do Steph Curry like that and they trade him. They trade Steph Curry like the franchise guy, the baby face assassin, the face of the league, one of the faces of the league in the last decade. I would be like, oh, they ain't loyal at all. There's no way I want to go play for Golden State. That's just how I would. So if I'm Golden State, I'm like everybody but Steph Curry. Draymond, yes, you could go. See you later. Klay Thompson, it was nice. You know, like we gonna hang your jersey up, all that good stuff. But we'll see you later. But Steph Curry though, Steph Curry, if he plays for any other team outside of Golden State, it should be because he wanted to. Like that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Like
No, they're not.
But
But
but if you're a Golden State, right? The goal is either you're trying to rebuild or you're trying to build a championship team around Steph Curry. And based on these moves that I'm seeing from them, they're not really
this ain't it. Yeah,
they're not building a championship
this
team.
ain't it.
So what
Yeah.
are they doing?
I will say this, and I don't think they can afford it, but we talked about Brook Lopez. Man, Brook Lopez would be such a great fit with that team. Like,
Yeah,
he would be, and I mean, honestly, I
he
think
addresses all their needs,
he does. He does the rebound and the block shots, the
and he can shoot.
shooting. Yes,
Right.
you finally have a big that can actually shoot the ball.
Space
That's
the
a threat. That's a threat. That's instead of being loony. So, I don't know if they got I don't know their salary cap situation, but man, if they could put their hands on it, Brook Lopez say, you know what, I'll take the mid-level exception, which he ain't. He on his last contract. He on his last contract.
You gotta get that. You gotta get the bag now. Yeah.
He got to get the bag. So, and you know what? And like I talked about with Victor Wembanyama, man, I'm gonna have to work on that one. It's almost like, hey, it's almost like Giannis. It took a minute. I had to keep saying it. It's gonna take a little minute for Victor, but it's a lot of young talent coming into the league. Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson. What was y'all take on like free agency? What would you? And honestly, we can even start with the number one pick. I mean, this guy's been all on everywhere, YouTube, Twitter. I mean, the dude's everywhere, right? 7'5". And honestly, getting drafted by number one by the Spurs, I mean, will history repeat itself? Tim Duncan, David Robinson, like what do you think this guy's ceiling is? Like, what's your take on this? Anybody can jump in.
Well, Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I understand. I get it. He's 7'5", very skilled, you know what I mean? And he has a lot of upside. But typically when you have players that are that tall, right? And his frame is so frail and skinny, it's what position is he? I've seen people say, well, he's a center. No, he's not. You can pull up highlights of him getting dominated by Kenny Lofton in that post. So where does he fit? Now, I'm glad that he got drafted by the Spurs because Greg Pop is probably the best coach for him.
Yep.
So I think the ceiling for him is, an all-star. But I don't think he's gonna be one of those MVP, type players. I feel like, he's gonna be a really, really good player. But all-star, but I don't see him being like a superstar player that's just gonna change the game, in my opinion.
That statement was said on June 30th, 2023.
I mean, I'm of the opinion, and I try not to be, a prisoner of, I try not to have recency bias and be a prisoner of what's going on right now. But when you look at this guy, I hear people, with voice that concern about, okay, is he a center? He's getting dominant. How many centers is he really gonna have to worry about on the defensive end? True centers, Embiid, Jokic, and that's about it. Those are only two centers that I can really think of that would, scare me if I were with Victor Wembanyama. However you say it, Wemby. We're gonna say Wemby because I can't say it yet. The issue, the problem is that he presents is that, okay, yeah, you might get him on this end, especially early in his career before he bulks up, but your center is also going to have to guard him on the other end. This is where him being able to handle the floor and again handle the ball. He can start the break just like Jokic, right? But he's also going to be faster than Jokic getting up the floor. So that means his guy is going to have to guard him 94 feet as opposed to getting back and then setting up in the lane because you can't give him that kind of airspace because he can shoot the ball. So I honestly, it's always kind of a crapshoot when there's a guy who hadn't played a game yet. But I don't see if he stays healthy, I don't see why he couldn't be an MVP down the road. Obviously, it won't happen his first year. The NBA is a different animal. But I think the league he was in France was one of the better European leagues, and those players usually come out. If they dominate there, they usually do pretty well in the NBA. So I'm not gonna, I don't know. I'm not gonna overreact to what I've seen, but I definitely think he has the every tool in the box because people said the same thing about Kevin Durant. Oh man, he's frail. He can't bench press 185. Well, the ball only weighs 8 ounces. The ball doesn't weigh 185 pounds. You just need him to put the ball in the hole. So um, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see. But I think he can be an MVP candidate, legit. 3 years.
Yeah. What's your take,
Yeah.
David?
So to me, looking at the way Victor Wembanyama plays, I go back to the Portland Trailblazers, right? They drafted two. They usually draft big men, and if we look at the Portland Trailblazers history, they've had some bad history with big men. Odom, uh, the year that they could have drafted Jordan, they drafted
Sam Bowie.
Sam.
Yeah.
The only time that they actually did something but again, he was plagued with injuries as well. Um, the best Blazer center ever for them. One championship with them.
Bill
Okay.
Russell, no, not Russell.
Bill Walton.
Bill Walton, right? And he too. I mean, they were able to win a championship with him. So to me, he can either be Greg Oden or he could be Bill Walton. But at the end of the day, it's going to be dependent on injuries. He is tall, big feet. So he can be either one. He can either be a bust or he can win, help the Spurs win a championship.
Yeah.
I don't see. I see like I see the way he moves is just too much punishment. He can't gain any weight because if he gains any weight, bulks up, that's going to increase the chances of him getting weight. So I don't see. I don't.
Yes.
Injury, I think, is the only thing. I think injury is the only thing. The good thing is he's in a great organization too. And he's thankfully he didn't get drafted to somewhere like Miami or New York or Atlanta, somewhere where there's a lot of distractions. Is nothing to do in San Antonio. He can go get in the gym and turn into a great player. But injury, I think, is the main thing. I think that's his ceiling. Is can he stay healthy? To me, and my
go to the Knicks.
Yeah.
He'd be out the league the first year.
already.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think with Wemby though, I think it's not so much about bulking up. I think it's just about gaining that strength.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Conditioning his body to get stronger. You
gotta be able to take some punishment.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I think and I think that's actually what they talked about in the interview. It's not necessarily about bulking up, but just getting stronger. And if he's 18, 19 years old, no, it's 20, no older than 20 years old, right? So I mean, he's young, got a young body. Now, what I would say is this, and I think David mentioned, I was gonna mention as well, was that's usually the take on taller players. They come into the league and they're fine. Then next thing you know, they start to put on weight, trying to get bigger and bulkier. And then next thing you know, their lower extremities, they start having injuries and things of that nature. So I think just getting stronger, but man, my goodness, getting drafted by San Antonio. I was on Twitter. I seen where Manu Ginobili, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, they all came and showed him some love, probably, gave him some tips, pointers. So, I mean, he's going to be able to learn from, I mean, that organization, just period.
Right.
You got to think
Yeah.
of even what they did with, I mean, just think about some of the players that have came through there. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, Danny Green Danny Green didn't do anything outside of playing with San Antonio.
Yeah.
Bertans.
Yeah.
What's
Boris
his name?
Diaw.
Pau Gasol played there. Pau
Yes.
Gasol played
I
there
mean,
after LA.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
So
player
they know how
development.
to do it. They know how to
Yeah,
do it.
they know how to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
Mhm.
think that he's in the best place. Better than Zion Williamson. Better than Zion Williamson. I'm sorry, that was such a twist. I'm sorry, that was a plot twist there. But I,
Obviously.
I just, we gotta talk about nobody personal life,
Yeah. Hey.
Uh,
Yeah.
but what's up? Like, what's the deal with Zion? I'm sorry, I think of Zion because he's supposed to be the next big thing, right? And he can't stay on the floor.
I'm rooting for him, but he just can't stay healthy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
like,
would have New Orleans would have such a good team if he was.
Yeah.
I mean, because Herb Jones, look how he's an Alabama guy, of course,
yeah,
but
yeah,
he is
yeah,
so good
yeah,
defensively. Like, he is such a good defender. Like I
Yeah.
just will watch him defend, and you put C.J. McCollum there. Jackson. I think Jackson Hayes is still there. I think, or who? I don't know who their
yeah.
center is now. They
And
got
they got Brandon Ingram.
Brandon Ingram, Brandon Ingram, and what's his name? Played for the squadron. The guard was in the 3-point contest. I can't think of his name now, but he and who's the guy from Puerto Rico?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, was it Alvarado?
Alvarado. Yeah,
Alvarado, yeah.
he played in
Oh,
Birmingham.
yeah, yeah, right,
He
yeah,
played in
yeah, yeah.
Birmingham for the squadron. So him and I forget the other. It's on the tip of my tongue. Trey Murphy.
Trey Murphy.
So they got a really good team, man. If they could just get their guy on the floor for just give us 50% of the season.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think he wants to play for the Pelicans.
you don't think so?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think if he was where he wanted to play, he'd play.
Sure.
You know?
I can see that. I can see that. Because you see him in there, warming up, doing 360 dunks on warm up
And then he don't
to
play.
go put street clothes back on. Like, what? Like, bro, get out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Get out there.
what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on him, David?
Yeah.
I love Zion Williamson. If the Knicks can find a way to trade for Zion, I would do it. If I could find a way to get
All roads lead back to the Knicks for David.
get rid of Julius and back to the Pelicans. I mean,
yeah.
one of the best seasons he had was with the Pelicans. So,
Yeah.
Hey,
listen.
We can make this happen. We can make this happen.
He wanted to go to New York, didn't he?
Yeah, team Randall back up with
yeah, he wanted to go to New York.
Ingram. So
when the Knicks when the draft lottery came out and
he was a Knicks finished second, right?
Third. Knicks
Third, yeah, I remember that.
You could see in his face, he was like, "Oh no, I'm going.
Yeah. Well, hey, he may even upgrade his taste a little bit.
Yeah. He didn't need to be in New York though.
Yeah,
but he would have been reunited. With his teammate RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in New York.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Well, one guy that I want to make sure that we talk about is different. There's a little, and I want to give. I am just FYI. I'm a big Ohio State Buckeye fan, but I got to give it to this guy, Brandon Miller. I think he's going to be the best pickup, the best drafted. He's going to end up being the best player in the league, or not in the league, but the best player in the draft of 2023. Brandon Miller from Alabama.
I actually think
he's going to be trouble.
I think he's going to be one of those Paul George type players. I think he's going to be a all-star, multi-all-star. a really, really good player. Yeah, so I like that pick. But I think Scoot gonna be the best
Scoot
player in that
like
draft.
career.
Career wise.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, with whatever Portland's doing, which I don't know what they're doing, but if they decide to go the route that they're doing and letting Dame stay there, I mean, come on, like you talking about the learning tree, sitting under the learning tree of Dame for I don't care if it's just half a season, because I hope he get traded, Dame that is, to a better place. But
let's Scoot.
yeah, and let Scoot get the keys, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Anthony Simons, I don't know what they're gonna do with him because he's still there. He's still at this point a guy who can, I mean,
Play. He can play.
play,
Yeah.
play. So he still got some good people to sit under. Kind of like Derrick Rose. His first year with the Bulls, he had Kirk hiring those guys, and then the second year is when he kind of just took off. So I mean, it could be the same thing for Scoot.
Resign.
Who's that?
Jeremy Grant, did he resign with Portland?
Oh, he certainly
Yeah.
did.
Big money.
Big money. He
big
re-signed.
contract.
He re-signed like
Man.
5 years, $160 million for 5 years. He got the full 5.
Yeah, it's official. Damian Lillard staying now. They got Jeremy Grant back.
5 years, $160 million.
I sit in the locker room, bro. You don't even have to give me a seat on the bench. I'll sit in the locker room.
Man.
Just give me 10% of what these guys are making, man.
And
Kuzma, what do you get? 102 million?
102 million. Yep.
4 years.
Crazy.
For 4 years. Well, Kyle Kuzma, like I said.
Yeah.
I mean, the money that these guys are putting out now is absolutely crazy. And then these names that you hear that be getting, like, respectfully, Kyle Kuzma, I'm just, but I mean, who else the Wizards gonna pay? I mean, they're gonna give the money to Jordan Poole now, Kyle Kuzma, and I guess they'll win 22 games. I mean, 12 maybe. And hope for the draft.
Going up to the game.
You said what?
Everybody will have really expensive wardrobes walking into the game.
Oh, that's for sure. Oh, that's for sure. Yeah, and Kyle Kuzma, especially getting that money, he about to go color his hair purple, and I mean, he about to wild out. He about to wild out. So Victor Wembanyama, Wendy, what we said, Wendy.
Wemby.
Yeah, let's
say Wendy.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. But I personally, going back to him, I think that ceiling wise for me, I mean, 7'5", that skill set, if he can avoid injuries, I mean, I think he can be an MVP of the league. Yeah, I'm not going to say he can be the best player in the league because I do have high, and I'm not maybe a little partial with Brandon Miller too. Like, I do have high hopes that Brandon Miller can play his first 6-7 years in Charlotte and then get out of there like most people would, So, but I do think him playing with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, that is, will also, I mean, that's going to benefit him, man, because Melo Ball is going
tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to knock your shots down, and I mean, and just be ready, So, that Charlotte team, I think, if Brandon Miller can come in the first 2 years, they're going to be looking pretty good. But that Victor, I think he has even a higher ceiling than Brandon Miller, just because, I mean, 7'5". He's coming from France, and I will say this, and I was talking to somebody about this. I think European players or international players, I'll say, they, to me, come in better than USA players. Like, what's y'all take on that?
Oh, yeah.
They're more polished.
Yeah, they're more polished. They're more NBA ready. Because they're already playing professional basketball.
What I was going to say, a lot of them are playing professionally at 14 and 15, where we can't start playing until, 18, 19 professionally. They're playing organized in leagues at 14, 15 years old. So they already have a head start, and what they lack in, I ain't gonna say they lack athleticism. I think that's a misnomer that it's just been drilled in everybody's head that all European guys aren't as athletic. Of course they are. Of course they are. And I think too, it helps that they're not as pampered. Because I think when you see the AAU circuit in the United States, they're treating these guys like they're already NBA players in high school, in middle school. These guys don't have any frills. They're not flying chartered flights, and they don't have a lot of shoe sponsorships like they do in the AAU circuit here. So a lot of those distractions they don't deal with. So when they do get to the NBA, they're not you know their eyes aren't as wide. Like, oh man, what is this? Um, so yeah, I definitely think they're more skilled, and they have to be more well rounded there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think European players, difference between European players and players here growing up that play here in the States. European players are fundamentally sound. Um, Out here, they from the moment they pick up a ball, what they want to do, shoot like Steph Curry,
Mm-hmm.
shoot threes. That's all they want to do, right? They don't. They're not really. They're not. The mid range is no longer talked about. I mean, even in the NBA, how many players that you know have a strong mid range game? And players from Europe, they kind of huh? They players from Europe, they are fundamentally they know they can pass, they know how to pass the ball. They're fun. They might not be quick or fast, but they can somewhat. Some of them can play good team defense. So these are all things that the game here in the States is lacking as far as the young guys coming up. That's different to me, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then also too, international play. When they play in those leagues, it's about team. They know how to play team basketball. It's not about them individually per se. And then in the States, it's all about that player getting their numbers. You know,
Yeah.
so when they come into the league, they feel like it's sweet, it's gravy.
Yeah.
It's all about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I do agree with that, because I do think in the AAU circuit, if you think it's a dog eat world if you think about it, man. We talking about 450 players that make it to the NBA. So how can I showcase myself as
Yeah.
in the AAU circuit? Guess what it's gonna be? It's me.
Wow.
It's about me. Like, you fall in line, I'm shooting a shot, I'm dribbling. But then when you're talking about international, that because they can become pros. Think about, imagine this, becoming a pro, as you mentioned, at 14, 15 years old, and you're playing with 30-year-olds. You think you're gonna come in there and just dominate the ball? No, no, not at all. It's not gonna happen. If I'm an adult in there, hey man, look, kid, sit down somewhere. I know you good. I see your game. You got it, but sit down somewhere. Like, I'm not doing it. So in AAU, it's not that. You got these coaches. First of all, they're just hoping that you remember them in 5 or 10 years to get a check. Like, please remember me, Coach Deloach, in 5 years, so I can throw me a little something, buy me a car or something. So I don't know if AAU ball. I've actually, I can say I don't know. I always thought this AAU ball has probably hurt just a little bit of the competition a little bit.
I was gonna make. That's the point I was gonna make. AAU, I think has. I don't even think it's a little bit. I think AAU has really, really hurt. Just the foundation, because nobody's really. I won't say nobody, but the majority of AAU players aren't really being coached. They're just throwing a group of guys. It's like they're walking in. You walk in a pickup game. Everybody's picking the five guys that's probably the tallest or the most athletic, and then they're saying we're gonna run the gym. That's what the same mentality in AAU they have. So when they get to college, even when they get to the NBA, they struggle because they have, like James was saying, they have no concept of playing on a team, or maybe David said it, but they don't have concept of playing within a team structure. You're not just out there freelancing. There's a method to everything that you do. There's considerations of footwork, balance, leverage, all those things that they don't even consider. And yeah, so I think AAU there's more players. There's a bigger pool to draw from in the United States, talent wise. But I think the guys that do make it from European leagues, from South America, Latin American leagues, a lot of South American leagues are really, really good as well. Asian leagues, African leagues. So by the time they get here, they're already the cream of the crop there. So they're pretty much ready to go when they get here. So
Yeah, I also think a little bit has hurt here in the States is the fact that players don't really go to college anymore. And if they do, they play 1 year and gone. So they know that they're not staying there for 2, 3 years. So they just gonna get as much numbers as they can so they can make an impact, look good, so they can be a higher draft pick. But they're not really being taught fundamentals, not really being taught the team aspect of the game. They just dependent on their athletic. That's it. Right. So on the other hand, in Europe, right, these players are having to prove to the coach that, hey, I'm good enough to play. And if they are starting, like Lucas, for example, or for example, guy was
yeah,
young, really young, or Wemby, really young guy, but he's starting because he has the talent, right? But he's also being taught how to play within the system, which in AAU and playing 1 year in college is not happening. So
Yeah. So real quick, Woj bomb. uh, just
uh-oh,
just
uh-oh.
just want to talk. It's nothing huge, but just something I want to throw out here. Said Oklahoma City is acquiring Victor Oladipo and draft compensation to absorb his 9.45 million expiring contract. This creates a trade exception of $9.45 million with that deal. Miami trying to make some moves to clear some cap space.
Maybe that.
Damian Lillard. That'd be the only
Yeah.
logical
Yeah.
or
Maybe James Harden.
Uh, uh, hey, he wouldn't hey, he wouldn't last a month. He wouldn't last 2 weeks. He wouldn't last 2 weeks in Miami. Now the Pat Riley been came down there, shirt off, everything. Just get out. You got to go. You
Maybe
got
Carl Anthony Towns.
Carl Anthony Towns. I mean,
uh,
he's got to go. I don't know. He's got to go. I mean,
gonna
he
go somewhere.
you don't know about Miami.
I
Yeah.
just don't. Carl Anthony Towns. He's a good player, but I just
Well, you know what? You know what?
I wouldn't move heaven and earth to get him even if I had, if I was making those types of decisions. He's not a player that I look at as, man, that guy can be a cornerstone of what I want to do here. And I'm certainly not going to unload other valuable pieces to get it, especially with his salary. He's making so much money. That thing that would scare me away from him. But he's talented now. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't know. You can't hear you, said.
Yeah, we can't hear
Oh,
you.
I don't. New mic. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let him tell it. He said at the end of his career, he just wants to be known as somebody who changed the game.
That could be
Hear that?
bad.
Did you hear that? It's like
Yeah.
what?
And Simmons changed the game too.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
He sure did. He sure did. He sure did.
What about Zach LaVine? Would you if you Miami, would you go get Zach LaVine?
I like him, but he plays all right. Or is he a point guard?
No,
Nice too.
he's
I
more
mean, he's a two, but and that be the thing. I think well,
Colin,
Jimmy
you
can
got
distribute the ball,
yeah.
but I Dane will be top on my list board, man.
Yeah.
Like he has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And after that, yeah, you can talk about Zach LaVine. Me personally, I'd rather have DeMar DeRozan, but I mean, Zach LaVine is younger. He is younger, but I just
29.
he got that motor. I don't know if Zach. That's the one thing missing from Zach LaVine for me is like the defensive end, and then just that motor. You think, man, look at him, man. The dude is 6'8", 6'9", athletic, can shoot the ball, got handle. I mean, come on. talented, bro, talented, but it's just
Mhm.
It's like that's redundancy with Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero. I think with him, I think Lillard fits what they need because they were missing a point guard this year.
yeah,
You had Bam running point guard half the time. Like that dog ain't gonna hunt in the playoff.
no, no,
You know, Kyle Lowry. I mean,
Over the hill, man.
yeah, he can't stay healthy, and he hadn't been that good when he was healthy. So not in Miami anyway. But I don't know, man.
I like him in Toronto. I mean, every time he played the LeBron, like he would disappear.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's like James Harden, a little bit lower case as far as like in that playoff run. He just don't show. He just don't show. Kyle Lowry, maybe I think he'll be fortunate to have a home. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. I just don't know. Maybe somebody could have him in the veteran. I mean, shoot, go. The Memphis Grizzlies could have probably went for him. I actually don't know. Well, you know what? I take that back because I think is he still under contract with Miami? He's not a free agent, right? Yeah, I think he may be still on the contract. So yeah, I think this may be his last
might be next year.
so but either way, let me talk to the watch your narrative nation here. We are ending in the episode 2 here. And honestly, we want to really hear from you guys. We want to actually, interact, of course, and there'll be more to come with the interaction piece. Since now we're on Spotify, there'll be a place for you guys to be able to give us Q&As and for us to do polls, things of that nature. And as I mentioned before, there will be a poll up by the time this episode comes out. Jimmy Butler or Tracy McGrady? This was a discussion that we were having. I don't know if Mays was here. Mays, who? Jimmy Butler or Tracy McGrady? For
If I
whatever.
if I had to pick one guy,
Yes, sir.
oh man, it had to be Tracy McGrady. I mean,
Whew.
yeah, I love Jimmy Butler, but Tr-
Tracy,
Kobe Bryant said Tracy McGrady was the hardest guy for him to figure out, other than KD,
yeah,
and so that holds a lot of weight. Jimmy Butler, he's that guy. He's definitely that guy. But if I had to go, just historically, I mean, it would be T Mac. T Mac was, people forget how good he was for a really long time. So that's a great question.
oh yeah.
That's a
Yeah, and that will be up on a poll on Twitter. Twitter, go follow us on Twitter. WYN Podcast, Watch Your Narrative Podcast. We will be on YouTube as well. Watch Your Narrative Podcast. We also have Instagram as far as the social goes. Watch Your Narrative Podcast as well. Facebook, same thing. Watch Your Narrative. We will be anywhere you can find podcasts. Coming soon to iTunes, Apple Music. But we're already on Amazon Music and on the Google Podcast platform as well. So we appreciate the support, watching Narrative Nation, and there will be more and more content, more episodes coming your way very, very soon. Thank you for listening. CD Rome out.